From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
It's Vicki.
That's it.
That's it. Jen's not here.
Jen's not here. Alan's not here. Nobody else is here, except we have a guest.
That's right.
We have a guest who is almost part of the team. We're going to work on that. We're going to fix that, and eventually they will be part of the team. He is a car guy through and through. He is a professional photographer, and I guess he would say a professional videographer, since he does a lot of work with our friends over at the Everyday Driver podcast, TV show, movies. Anything else you guys make?
YouTube channels. We got two YouTube channels.
Oh, yeah.
Two of those.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough keeping up with him.
It is.
We tried to pin him down. We tried to get him on. We wanted him on in time for Thanksgiving. Black Friday. We didn't make it. We're going to get this one out really fast.
That was my bad.
That's fine.
Yep.
You're allowed to have turkey. Speaking of a car guy through and through, unless things have changed, and I haven't heard recently, he has two project cars. One is a 911, and one is a classic Mustang. I think the classic Mustang is going more towards the Pro Tourer project in training.
Yep.
And he takes some of the best pictures we ever see. You can follow him at Fatty Hales, spelled with the PH. And with us for this podcast, we have Chance Hales. Welcome, Chance.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Sorry it took so long.
No worries.
Okay. We were hoping to get you here in time for Christmas.
He's in time.
We're in time. We made it. Snuck it in.
That's right.
Let's see. Next year, we're going to have to say which Christmas or which Black Friday.
That's right.
And then we'll nail him down, because he's Black Friday. He's got
right.
360 more days now.
Four more years, or wait?
That's right.
That's right.
Comes around every year. So I tried to do an introduction. I'm horrible at introductions. I take too long. Vicki keeps making the hand signal for me. And is there anything that I may have left out that you want to let our listeners know about, like family life, professional life, racing life?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to be a pretend race car driver, do a lot of my own track days and things with that, my own cars. I do. I just, this past year, I graduated to HPDE 4 in NASA. So
congratulations.
That means I can now run with the big boys and get a transponder and actually get my lap times and all that.
Sure.
No passing restrictions or anything. So I'm excited.
Excellent. I love the NASA curriculum for the HPDs. That's what we tend to go to whenever we have the choice.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It is. Where do you guys race mostly out there? High Plains?
Utah Motorsports Campus, actually. It's our local track.
Oh, that's right.
And it's about a half hour outside Salt Lake City. We haven't for a couple of years, because since the track recently sold and changed hands, but we were getting World Challenge Series was coming out here. A couple motorcycle series was here. Lemons came here a time or two. Yep. A lot of big events were coming here. And it's kind of trickled down, but it's still NASA all the time.
It's on our to-do list. We'll to do it until it's to done, and then we'll probably do it more than once. So
do it some more.
Always.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
It's a disease.
Oh, so how did you actually get into racing?
Into racing?
In cars.
Right.
Well, in cars.
We're going to start there first.
Oh, okay.
Then we're going to go back in, because we're going to get a little bit of your racing history first before we get into the photography.
Okay. So I moved to Utah in, 2012? And I actually did not know we had a racetrack here when I moved here. I started working for the local Porsche Audi dealer, learned about the track, started doing more and more photography through the dealer and got hooked up with this small local automotive vlog called Daily Derby, which no longer really exists anymore, I don't think. But yeah, exactly.
Well, at the
Or not,
first
no,
time I heard
it wasn't a
vlog.
vlog. It was just a blog. It was a blog, not a vlog. Sorry, we didn't do video. But I started getting more into photography, and we covered a lot of the local racing events.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going out to the track. My first time was this little event we called Wintercross, which was a single car at a time. They set up cones on the track to kind of change the lines. It was a series they ran through winter, rain, snow, shine. They didn't prepare the track or anything. So if it was a foot of snow on the track, you were racing in a foot of snow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And that's where I kind of started getting into racing more seriously. I guess going back, growing up, we had a family friend that did circle track racing. He had a little Nissan something on a dirt track. It was like a 3/8 mile, and we'd go out and watch him race for a time or two. But watched NASCAR here and there. But then I discovered, when speed was still a thing, Speed Vision channel, the series called ALMS, which is now IMSA, and they took right turns as well, which was just a lot more interesting, and sports cars, and just kind of exploded from there.
Right. So how did you get into photography?
Photography. So my, 18th birthday, I got my grandparents got me a digital camera, my first camera, and I took it with me everywhere. I just took pictures of cars I saw or the cool houses I saw at work. I worked for a swimming pool company at the time, so I went into a lot of the ritzy neighborhoods and saw the nice houses and things. And then when I started college, I originally went to school to design cars. That's what I wanted to do, was be a car designer. And part of trying to find inspiration for that was I'd go to the local car dealers and walk around the lots and take pictures of different details and things like that, and just see where the lines were and how the shapes were formed and whatnot. And I started becoming less and less interested in drawing and more interested in taking pictures of cars.
Right.
And then back when I started working at the Porsche dealer, on my lunch break, I'd walk around the showroom or on the lot and started taking pictures and trying to, get the right frame and make the cars look good and get the angles and the details. And I eventually showed them to one of was it the general manager maybe? And he was like, yeah, we need someone to start running our social media pages. So I started running our social media sites, and just kind of snowballed from there. I eventually went from parking the cars in front of the building to being allowed to drive 911s off the lot over to the lake and take pictures of them in a more scenic spot.
Right.
And then that's just kind of where it all started.
And so that's how you married photography to motorsports.
Yes.
That's the very beginning. All right. So where are some of the places that you're featured?
Everyday Driver mostly. Like we said at the beginning, we're a TV show on the Velocity channel, and we air Saturday mornings. We're off air right now. Our next season premieres, I forget the exact date off the top of my head, but it's the first weekend of January. Set your DVRs, because our time slot is very early in the morning, and we don't want anybody to. Yeah, we don't want people to wake up that early for us. But we're also on Amazon Prime and Vimeo. But most of my photos with the show end up on Instagram. We've got the show is just at Everyday Driver. Then Bill mentioned mine is at Fatty Hales. I've also got a website, chancehalesphotography.com, and Facebook page and those kinds of places. But I've been published a few times, not very many times in print, but there was a magazine called Kit Car Builder a few years back that I had a cover shot on. I've done work for Ford. I've got some posters that I shot for them. And this little company here in Provo, Utah called Vanderhall. They build these little 3-wheel cars with Chevy engines in them. Took some commercial photos for them too.
Okay.
So, Chance, I don't know if you know this. I'm pretty sure Paul and Todd never put it together, but back on like episode 20, something in the 20s, I wrote in saying, hey, I'm thinking about getting, my son's starting to drive, and we're thinking about getting a family HPDE car.
Yeah, I remember the story. We did put this together. Yep. Go ahead.
We did? Okay.
Yep.
So I wrote into you guys because I've always been a car guy. Life and things get in the way. Then we started to, have some time. We started to sit still. So, when you stop moving, you can start thinking about like having a car. So we started about thinking about getting into an HPDE or some type of a family fun car where Vicki could learn how to drive a little better and Liam could learn how to drive at all. And then eventually Mia. And then, that was part of the germination of the beginning of the Garage Heroes in Training. And then you guys sealed the deal with me. I got the family CFO, soon to be team CFO, on board. You guys released your first Lemons video. I think it was season 1, like episode
season 2.
2.
The episode's called Lemonade.
Yep.
I don't remember what number it was, but
terrifying.
You were out in Washington.
Yep.
And I call Vicki in, and she watches it, and I say, "Well, what do you think?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "It's a $500 car. All you need is $500. How much could it cost? We should at least give it a try."
Right.
And she said yes, and I just eliminated all the rest of the other stuff, and so you guys are to blame for probably 20 cars since then. A Lemons team, a podcast. It's really, if anybody's listening to this and likes this, then, they should blame you. And if they don't like it and they're listening to this, they should blame you.
Okay. We can take that blame.
So the three of you have brought all this upon the world. And I just want to make sure that you realized the implications of your work has brought the world to this place. Don't know if that's something to be proud of or something to run away from.
No, it's very cool. We always love hearing stories like that.
Yeah. So
it's amazing how quickly it can snowball too, as you know.
Especially if you buy the wrong cars, because
yes.
then you buy another one to make up for it. So yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So before we get too far down the photography line, and Vicki eats her microphone because she's so excited to talk about this, how are the two? I don't know if the Porsche falls under project or not, but how are the two cars going?
Well, I guess so everyone else knows, I've got a 67 Mustang that I've had since I was 14. We actually brought the car home September 11th, 2001.
Ooh.
So never forget that day for many reasons, obviously. But the car, it was an original condition. Well, mostly the engine had been rebuilt by the previous owner. And it's been a long project, one of those always changing, never done kind of things, and not ever where I really want it to be. Because, life happens, or you're in school or work, or you don't have the money for it, or whatever the case is.
Doesn't affect anybody on this team ever.
No, never. And car was running. I had it. I was driving it consistently. Then eventually that engine that was in it blew. So I had to put a different one in it. And it, of course, was bigger and better and had more power, and it was faster, and the car was great. We've actually got a video on it on YouTube, and it was also on our TV show as well.
It was. I was going to say, I was thinking, it sounded like you forgot. I'm like, no, it's been on TV.
Yep. Well, the YouTube one I actually hosted myself, so I like putting that one first.
Oh, that's right. You did. You're right.
Not to toot my own horn, but
then you got some camera time.
Sometimes. Usually it's behind the camera, not in front. But so this driving the car around, I feel like whenever I drive that car, if I drive it 3 or more days in a row, it always breaks. Something happens on that third day. If I drive it 2 days in a row and I park it, it's fine. Well, I drove it on that third day. This was back in the end of February, early January, and pulled out on the road, shifted into second gear, punched it because, American muscle.
There.
Why not? and there was a loud bang. The engine stopped working, and there was oil all over the road, and I had to be towed home. So that car hasn't moved.
Sound like tired parts.
Yeah, very broken parts. I finally got to pull the oil pan off and found bits of piston in the bottom of the oil pan.
Oh, that's
So,
never good.
That's only supposed to happen at Lemons races.
No, so it had a unscheduled rapid disassembly. So,
well, it's on the way to being taken apart, so that should make it easier.
Yeah, right. But I haven't had the time to really dive into it. But it's a very dead engine and needs to be replaced. I just don't know how dead it is and how, if I need an all-new engine or if I can just get a bottom end and reuse a lot of the old parts with that car. So that one's been sitting in my garage since January, mostly untouched, collecting dust, unfortunately, because I also have a 2000 911, which has, I just rolled over 182,000 miles on that car 2 days ago.
Oh, nice.
Which is a ton of miles for one of those.
Yeah, but if you know about cars and you're working with the cars, I've discovered that the mileage doesn't bother me so much.
It really doesn't, and the car runs great. Yeah. There's no issues with it. I've replaced parts as they've worn out. This year, I had to replace the transmission in that car, which was not cheap. So that was, since I daily drive that car, instead of putting that money into the Mustang, which would have been a nice crate engine, I had to put into a transmission for the 911.
Oh.
Yeah.
You've got too many to play with.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, I suppose.
It is a good problem to have.
But so that car is the one I drive. I put snow tires on it, and just away I go. I love that thing. That's the one I track. I've tracked the Mustang once. It's not legal for most track days because it only has lap belts. I don't have shoulder harnesses. But the 911 I've tracked multiple times, and it's amazing on track, and I'm only getting faster and faster. And that comes, the more you track your car, you get more experience, and you get more comfortable behind the wheel and the track, and so on and so forth.
How long have you been with Everyday Drivers?
5 years, almost 6, I think, something like that.
And they just saw your work and you presented and they're just like, you're the guy. That's it.
No, it wasn't quite that simple.
No. Or were you just three knuckleheads that decided to get together? And
no, they had actually already been a show they'd been a YouTube channel for a couple years before that. They were based in California at first, and they moved to here in Utah. I had met one of our former videographers through a Facebook group. We both realized we were in Utah taking pictures of cars, and so we connected. He introduced me to Todd, one of our co-hosts, at a local Cars and Coffee. And at the time...
Cars and Coffee?
Yep.
Was that the Seinfeld one? Or?
No. Like a local
show.
Local car show.
Okay.
Generically, that's what they're called.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So we met at one of those. I was at the time a journalist student in college and trying to write for car magazines. And I approached Todd and was like, "Hey, I'd like to, talk with you about the industry, just see what it's like, what kind of things I should look for on my end, and whatnot." And we met a couple times. We ended up talking over the phone for an hour or so, just about car journalism and photography and video and whatnot. And a few months go by. We'd see each other at the Cars and Coffee shows, and one day he calls me up and says, "Hey, I'd like to have lunch and go over our schedules." It's like, okay. So went up, had lunch. We went over the year of potential shoots that they had planned and started shooting for them on weekends. At that time we weren't a TV show. We were only on YouTube. I don't even remember if we had the podcast yet. Maybe that was just starting. And we've grown a lot. It
sounded like you'd been there when the podcast started, but it might have been close.
Yeah, I think it was around the same time. It was thereabouts.
Yeah, and we're way behind on podcast numbers. I think you guys are getting close to 600.
Yeah, we're in the 550 60s right now, something
Yeah.
like that. I can't even keep up.
Yep. It's routine
amazing.
in the top 10. You guys keep bumping them out, and we keep listening. It's a very good podcast.
Oh, I appreciate
So
that.
do you do the video work also?
Yes, my title with them is I'm the associate producer. So I do a lot of the camera work. I do some of the video editing. I do all of the still photography. Some of the
occasional co-host.
Yeah, podcast co-host once in a while to fill in. Sometimes I come up with some of the ideas for the shows and help plan and chase down the cars that we need for an episode. So if we can't get them from the press fleets, we try and find cars locally through private owners, and that can be quite a chore. It's a big ask of people.
Well, especially when you guys are doing what I always call your movies or feature films, because then you start talking about, like, one is I think it was 50 years of 9/11. One was every M3 car, every single series, every single variety. One was every Corvette, single series and variety. And, trying to get and coordinate all of those cars to be in one spot at one time. I can only imagine. I can't even get Vicki and Jennifer and Alan to get on the podcast.
Yeah. And with those kinds of shoots, sometimes we've had people show up on the group day, and then they decide it's not for them, and they don't show up on the day we need their car for in-car stuff. And then you got to find another one, and it can become quite a chore. It's rare, but it does happen.
Always have a plan B.
So we always try to have multiples in line, which for cars like a 54 Corvette, that is extremely hard to find two of them in the same place.
Right.
I mean, I don't even think I may have seen two in person.
Right.
Ever. So, and
And
you
one
went on
was
the same
probably
day.
at a Corvette museum, right?
Yeah, one was at a Corvette.
Yeah,
museum.
there you go.
Oh, I forgot about that. I have seen two then. Okay, we're good. So this is Bill signing off for the rest of the podcast, because we're about to get into
the creative side.
What cameras and video photography equipment it'll be. So I'll come in with the hey, I don't know anything about what we're talking about side of the world, but Vicki.
Yes.
Release the hounds.
So I'm looking at this as like a Christmas edition. Okay.
Sure.
Because there is more to racing than just racing. And as creative people that are out there, I'm sure they would like to express themselves. Yeah. So
this could be the most expensive podcast that we've ever had for me.
No, that was the $500 one. So yeah. So
well, wait till you hear how much some of these camera stuff costs.
Oh no, I already know. And that's why I'm stuck. No, seriously, that's why I'm stuck.
So do I.
Okay, so the story goes, and we were talking about this a little earlier. I've taken a couple classes on photography, at the times when, Bill and I were getting married, and, we moved around a lot. So just kind of express yourself, going out and, doing things. And
sure.
So we've had cameras, and right when Bill got me the last camera, I didn't have a ton of stuff with it. I didn't really have a direction to take it. The cameras on the phone started getting really good. And you could start editing at the same time. And, I was a Mac person, so we're kind of doing that. So I didn't really need to go back into like a Nikon or something. So I had this Nikon. And now, as we're going into racing more and we're growing in our racing, our phones are now used for our telemetry and our digitals.
Yeah.
So we don't really run around. We're trying to save battery life because we need them in the cars. So with that, he said, why don't you go out and bring out this Nikon 5300 that you have? I think it's a 5300. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So
that's a 5+-year-old digital camera for those like playing at home.
Yeah, it was 2003 when it came out.
Was it?
Or the model had come out about.
Okay. Yeah.
No, 2013. It came out about 2013.
Okay.
So I honestly, I think I've used it once and then just went back to the phone because it was convenient.
And it's easier.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you just point and shoot, right?
Don't have this thing hanging on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and the idea about taking it to Disney, it's just easier with a phone. So as I'm going through with this camera, and I'm looking at lenses and look at stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this camera's a 2013.
Mhm.
And as I'm reading, cameras are going mirrorless now. And before I invest in a camera, I want to make sure that I have the right base of a camera to use before I start investing in upwards of 2,000 plus lenses if I'm going to be going into this.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm researching, I'm like, I really need to talk to somebody because everybody's got a different opinion.
Oh, of course.
I want to know what works.
So I use Canon. I don't really know Nikon very well at all, to be completely honest. I've used Canon since I started. I started on a Rebel XT, which at the time was already old. It was a 8 megapixel
Agassi.
Yeah, yep. It was an 8 megapixel DSLR crop sensor, not a very big camera. It didn't do much. The shutter speed, burst rate, the frames per second it would shoot was incredibly slow, but it was great.
Rebel?
Yep, but it was a great starter camera.
Yeah.
Then I bumped up to a 7D, which was great for racing because it fires off a lot of pictures a second. But again, it was already starting to get old by the time I got one. Then I upgraded to a 6D, which was Canon's entry-level full-frame sensor body. For those that don't know, the sensors are what actually takes the picture. It's your film, so to speak. So a crop sensor is like looking at a standard definition TV where it's the box, not the widescreen. It's the box. A full frame has a bigger image, so it gets more pixels, more information, and you can do more when you're editing the picture.
Right.
So I used that for several years until, if you know our show, you've heard the story. If you don't, we were on a film shoot in Washington. It wasn't for Lemons, but we were doing a shoot in Washington in the Tacoma area, and just wrapped up the first day. We were filming a wide body flat six Porsche 914 and a Jaguar Eagle Speedster E-Type. Gorgeous cars.
Griot's episode.
Yep, this is the Griot's episode. Yep.
Not that
the first night after we shot, we went out to dinner, came back out to our rental van, and the windows were smashed. Everything was taken. All our gear, all the footage, our carry-ons that had our clothes, everything was taken. So that became a big ordeal, and fortunately it was all insured, and we ended up getting a lot of new gear and upgrades and
the work.
But it was, insurance is slow and the process, and then the work we lost that day on top of the work that we were working on with our own laptops. So we were in the middle of doing the edit of that Corvette film that Bill was mentioning earlier, the American original film. And fortunately that was all backed up at home, so we didn't lose that footage, but we had lost a couple days worth of work that we had worked on the plane, on the trip, and that kind of stuff.
I want to cry right now.
Yeah, it was a very difficult night and subsequent months, but now I've got a 5D Mark IV, which is their newest full frame, not newest anymore, I guess, but it's their pro level 4 frame. It's like $2,000 or $3,000 for the body alone. And
wow.
Yeah, it's an expensive camera, but I've continually amazed at what I can do with the images that it creates and the light levels it has, and just the usability of the raw footage or the raw pictures.
Now, go ahead.
So I raise my hand whenever you guys start getting super down the rabbit hole. So from my understanding, as an engineer, I would think that all cameras are interchangeable and all lenses can fit on all cameras, and life is good, life is grand. However, every time I keep buying these things, that doesn't work. So for those at home, if you're a Canon person, stay with Canon. If you're a Nikon person, stay with Nikon because the way the lenses screw onto the body of the camera is different from. There's no USB on these. So,
and even then, they're not always the same within the brand. Canon, for example, has mirrorless cameras now, and those use a specific mount for their lenses onto those cameras that's different from their DSLRs, and it's just it's frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, as I'm going down this rabbit hole of, you know, cameras, I'm realizing how complicated it's getting, and you know, with that, it's like, you know, where would your starting point be? So again, the types of camera you seem to have really enjoyed or have started with a Canon, have just kept with the Canon. You're familiar with the Canon, which is great. And you're saying that a Canon, you know, in your point of view, is a very good camera. I'm sure Nikon people.
Nikon's the same. Yep. Nikon versus Canon, I would say, is like Chevy versus Ford. A lot of it's opinion.
They're basically the same, just a different style.
Yeah, they've got different things that they're good at. Some of them are better at one thing than the other. But it's a lot of it's personal preference.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to ask some of these really good questions. About
time we had a really good question.
Is a camera with videos, are they worth it?
If you want to shoot video, yes.
Okay,
so they just doing pictures, no. Your phone's good enough for video otherwise.
Okay. All right. Because honestly, I don't remember last time I've seen a freestanding video camera. Honestly, I'm sure they're out there.
With the show, all the cameras that we shoot our television show on are basically DSLRs. They're mirrorless, but they're a small Sony. It's the GH5 for you camera nerds out there. But it's smaller than my big Canon camera even. And we shoot TV on it. And it's still shoots in 4K, and we have great footage.
Oh, nice.
Great image.
So, you have a question, Bill?
I do.
Okay.
So before you guys go to the extreme, so I'm a person. Let's pretend I'm a person who uses this camera.
And I'm a person.
That's on my phone. Yeah, pretend I'm a person. That's the first leap in logic. Pretend I'm a human.
Step one.
And then exactly. So let's expand let's say there's someone who's a human, not me, obviously. And they usually use their phone to take pictures. What is a good entry point past that before we get to, you know, some of the higher level amateur or the entry level professional? Is it just the little point and click ones? Is it?
That really depends on what you're wanting to use the camera for. If it's more of you want something simple and easy to use, and just a point and shoot will get you a better image than your cell phone will.
Okay.
Having said that, that's
good for still, but what about if we wanted to shoot at a race?
At a race, that'll be a little harder to use because a lot of them don't have manual modes that will allow you to change some of the settings you need for racing, like your shutter speeds and your aperture settings. I mean, you can do it. The thing with motorsport photography is you don't want the car to look like it's sitting still. If it's on a racetrack, the wheels should look like they're spinning, not stopped. We call that a parking lot shot because the car, you can't tell that. Some angles you can get away with it. Like if it's coming right at you, then you want a fast shutter speed. Otherwise, I tend to shoot anywhere between, here's where I'll get kind of technical here. I'll go anywhere between a 1/5 of a second up to a 1/800th of a second, thereabouts, depending on the type of shot I'm looking for. If I'm trying to make the car look really fast, I slow that down as low as I can. The slower you go, the harder it is to get that shot sharp and in focus and clear and not look wrong.
There's a lot of variables that go into making that.
It's not as easy as you'd think. It's not as simple as hitting a button.
No.
It is when I take a picture.
Yeah.
But what I tell everybody, though, the best camera is the best camera that you have. So the one that's with you. If that's your phone, then great. If that's your $5,000 whatever, then cool. But for someone starting out, I always tell people, if you're just trying to get into photography, then I wouldn't go all out and get the best expensive thing, because what if in 3 months you decide it's not for you? And then you've spent $3,000 or $4,000 on camera gear that you don't know what to do with now.
Mm-hmm. So since we're on that topic, for a basic starter set, for per se, I would like to go out, and whether I choose Nikon or whether I choose, a Canon or however, what would be a very basic starter set, say for instance, if I want to go to the track? And it don't have to be spectacular shots just yet, but it's a good place to start.
Yeah, sure. I genuinely don't pay close enough attention to what their lines are anymore, what the base cameras are.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go to Best Buy or Walmart or even look on Amazon and pick kind of a budget that you're looking to spend. If you're willing to spend $1,000, then cool. If you're willing to spend a couple $100, then cool. Pick the brand that you like, Canon, Nikon, Sony, whichever. And look for just the different features you want. I would try and find something that will do the most frames per second. So, 4 frames per second is not very fast. 8 is pretty fast. So that's how many pictures it will take in a second. Okay. The more the better, because if you're trying to get a car hopping on a curb with the wheels off the ground kind of a thing, that happens in such a split second that it could happen between those 2 shots.
Right.
So, and you end up missing it. And that happens a lot. Even when you have a faster camera, it still happens a lot.
What would your basic lenses be?
For track, the longer the better. Okay. I would not use, most of your basic cameras come with something like an 18 to 55 mil lens.
Right.
That's fine, but you're not going to be able to get close enough at most tracks for that to really bring the car into the frame. Mm-hmm. So something that will go up to 300 millimeters is pretty standard. That's a lot of the kit lenses. The basic cheap telephoto lenses will do about that. I use one that has a range of 150 to 600, which is a pretty solid lens. It was recommended to me by a fellow racing photographer by the name of Bob Chapman, and he's largely considered to be one of the best in the country for racing. He's worked with Porsche and Flying Lizard and Bentley and Ferrari and all the big manufacturers. He's done all the big stuff.
Right.
And so he recommended that lens to me, and I've been using it, and it's fantastic.
Right. So it just kind of does a little bit of everything for you.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But I mean, you can get a more base depending on the track too, and how close they allow access to. Some tracks you can get right up next to the track. Others, they don't let you get too close. So it kind of depends on your situation a little bit too.
So now, what about your lenses that you go in addition to? I mean, I'm sure you use polarizer lenses, or do you do that, or you wait for that to go onto your photo editing?
I always have a polarizer on my lenses. I always run one of those, and I always have.
And I know they come in different degrees too.
Yep.
And that all depends.
I can't say I'm tech savvy enough to know the differences in those.
North Pole's where Santa is.
Yeah, I don't have a good opinion on that one.
Okay.
For the which brands are better than others. For filters.
And
cool.
so far we're kind of getting like a beginner set, which is great.
Yep.
So
rough numbers for the people playing at home.
We got some rough numbers and seconds per shot. And I know what I have noticed, which was kind of handy too, is that, and I don't know, I mean, from a person coming from a very beginner's point of view, is they have these little cheat packets now for starters, so you can kind of so instead of kind of going out there and saying, well, I need to set my thing, you have your auto sets, but then you can kind of do your manual sets, and you're like, okay, I think these little booklets that they have are like little cheater sets, which will kind of give you an idea to recognize a starting point instead of having your camera manually do, or automatically do these things and not understand what your camera is doing. So I ended up picking up one of those too.
I'll let you in on a little secret.
Uh-huh.
Even at the track, I very rarely use manual mode.
Really?
I usually use, depending on the brand, it's shutter priority mode. On Canon, it's the TV mode. On Nikon, I forget what letters they use for theirs, but it's the shutter priority mode. That mode allows you to change your shutter speed, and then it will figure out your aperture, what setting that needs to be for you to still have the right light you need. So I use that at the track, and then I can set, okay, well, I know I want the car to look really, really fast right here, so I'm going to drop my shutter speed way down. It'll figure out what aperture that I need it to be at.
Nice.
Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. And then you start fiddling with manual if you need it. That's what I do. If I'm just shooting a car that's sitting still, then I'll use the aperture priority mode, and I'll change the aperture, and then it will figure out the shutter speed for me.
Okay. So when Vicki was saying they have little setups, she's talking the settings of the camera. Do they have like little setups, like packages where, you know, you talk to someone at the store and say, hey, I want to take a picture of cars going several hundred miles an hour, like our car, you know, obviously.
Right.
And, you know, it's tough to slow down from light speed, but, you know, we do it for you people.
Yep.
And
they've gone plaid.
Exactly. We've gone plaid. That's right. And do the camera stores, like it could be Best Buy or it could be, you know, a camera store that specializes in cameras, but do they have kind of like packages in terms of, hey, I want to do this is what you could start with? Or
possibly. I don't know if somewhere like Best Buy would have someone on staff that would be knowledgeable enough. They might, but for that, if you wanted to get that specific, I would go to an actual camera shop, find a local camera shop that people like, and go talk to those guys, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Cool. I know that B&H Photo was one place that we used a long time ago, and they still send me emails, and you know, they have a chat feature where you can either talk or type or video. Yep. And they always seem to have somebody there who knows what's going on and answers the questions that even I know that the answers mean. So that might be another place.
Yep, they're great. But if you were going to go, I know Amazon does a lot of big package deals too, where they'll have,
oh, that's true.
Here's your camera, here's a couple different lenses, here's a case and stuff like that. If you're looking at those, I would just be careful, because a lot of times those kits come with things you might not need or might not use. So I would put together your own list of things that you know you want, and if it comes with other things that you think you might need later, then cool, but get, you know, a camera, your memory cards, a tripod, a monopod. Monopods are important at racing events for the big heavy cameras, because you're not setting up a tripod. The monopod only has 1 foot instead, and you can be more mobile, and it's more flexible and easier to move the camera with the car than it is on a tripod.
That was going to be one of my questions, is all your gadgets, but so since we're talking about that, what are some of the techniques that you use to shoot photography? Obviously, you use a monopod.
Yep.
I've actually read of a person where because they had to manage photography for the track, he actually had a holster and had 2 cameras with 2 different lenses on it.
Yep, a lot of guys do that. I personally don't, but a lot of guys do that. It's just, for me, I see those guys, and nothing against them, but they're hauling around a lot of weight, and that gets tiring over the course of the day. I try and take as little as I need to. So I'll usually wear some like cargo pants, and I'll put a smaller lens in one of those pockets. Okay. They have little hip belts you can wear to carry on lenses too. I used to carry around a camera bag that had everything in it, but I mostly carried it around for 1, maybe 2 different lenses. And I was carrying around everything else with me that I didn't need.
It was a security blanket.
Pretty much. So I started...
just in case.
Yeah. And at these bigger racing events, they'll have a media center you can usually leave your stuff at the big events. At smaller events, they'll usually allow you to drive around the track in your car, and you can just leave your things in your car. So when I'm track side, I'm usually only carrying my camera, my big lens, a smaller lens for closer, more wide shots, and a monopod, and that's it. And some water. Always take water.
Mm-hmm.
especially out where you are,
Yes.
Yeah.
August
That's right.
here is hot.
and dry.
So
Yep.
we've gone over the basic starter set and what that would look like for, say, for a beginner who might be interested in having something like that for a birthday or something. I don't know. So
That wasn't even subtle. Not even a little bit.
Christmas is coming up, right?
yeah.
I've heard.
Well,
Dear
I
Santa.
know. Well, I know. I've already got struts put on my Christmas list, so I think that's
There
going
you
to
go.
eat up my whole thing. So okay, so photo editing. There's different programs. I'm sure that now, I remember back in the day before photo editing was photo editing, they had a lot of different kind of polarizing lenses, different kind of colored lenses, but now
Yep.
everything's on the computer. What programs do you use? And I know, I'm just kind of throwing it out there, I know Adobe has a whole cloud.
Yep, that's what I use. Yep.
Oh,
I
you
use
do?
the Adobe Cloud.
Okay.
So Adobe used to be Photoshop and Lightroom, and you'd buy, Photoshop 10 or whatever it was. And
Right.
that would come on a disk, you'd install it on your computer, and that's what you got. Nowadays, camera technology moves fast enough that they're having to update their RAW readers so often with new cameras just to be able to allow you to edit your own pictures. So
Really?
if you're
Now, what is RAW?
yeah, sorry. So raw images are what a camera will
The
take.
bad guy from He-Man, right?
Saying
Sorry.
raw or raw?
Raw, R-A-W.
Raw. I thought you were saying raw.
So a raw image.
Okay.
It's basically the digital equivalent of a negative, of a film negative. It's not compressed like a JPEG image is.
Right.
So you've got, when you're editing, that's more important. Then you've got a lot more color and detail you can work with, and then once you're done with your editing, then it'll compress to a JPEG or a TIFF or whatever file choice you like. So anyway, with cameras, the newer cameras coming out, they have to update the software on Photoshop and Lightroom to be able to read those new RAW files. Because there's just, I don't know what's different about them, but they're different enough that they've got to make it able to read those files. And then you get the other updates that, the new features come out, but you can't get it because you've got the old version. With cloud, you're always getting the updates. Every year you're getting the new version, you're getting the latest features, and you're only paying $30 a month or whatever it is. It's not crazy expensive, but it is a subscription service. But you're getting Photoshop, you're getting Lightroom, you're getting, there's a couple other different things that come with it, but I mostly use Photoshop and Lightroom for my editing.
AI. What is the AI?
Oh yeah, what is that one?
The one, yeah.
I know the one you mean.
Adobe Illustrator.
Yeah, Adobe Illustrator. No, yeah. Yeah, because we had to do some work with it, like for banners, moving and creating that way.
Oh, yeah.
So we've run across that a couple times. Okay, so do you think there's beginner programs that in case they didn't want to go into that? Do you know of anything that might be
There's
pretty
one
decent?
called GIMP that's free.
You
can download GIMP. I've only sort of used it. There's probably some other ones out there too. I know there's other Adobe Suite competitors, different brands that people like as well. That's just ones I've stuck with. But I primarily don't use Photoshop. I mostly use Lightroom, which is better for doing a lot of pictures at a time. So when I go to a racetrack and I cover big events, I'm usually coming home. If it's a NASA event, I'm taking 12 to 2,000 photos in a single day.
Right.
If it's one of the pro events and I'm there for 4 days, I'm taking 10 to 15,000 shots over the course of a weekend. And then having to edit all that is a big task.
Right.
But typically, light doesn't change much at the track if you know around when you're shooting. Once I set my slider adjustments for my exposure, the contrast, the shadows, things like that. Once I set those to where I like them, Lightroom will let me basically copy and paste to as many other images all at once as I want to. And then I can go through and make small changes to that if I feel the need.
I just learned something. That's awesome.
Yeah, which is great. Photoshop doesn't
Right.
let you do that. If you're doing heavy lifting type stuff, Photoshop's where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So how many rolls of film do you go through with all these pictures?
There's no film anymore.
Well, film's free nowadays, so it's...
There is no film.
Yeah, but how do you know you got anything good until you get it developed like a week later and spend like $20 a roll? It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, when I'm doing NASA, for example, I try and take as many pictures of every car I can, hoping I'm freelance for those types of events, and then I post them on my website and post them on the local NASA groups, and then the local drivers can come in and see, oh, hey, there's a picture of my car. Maybe I like the picture, maybe I don't. Maybe I'll buy it, maybe I don't. That's what I try and do there. When I'm doing a pro event, I generally try to have clients that I shoot for, so I'll be shooting for a specific race team or 2 or 3, which is a lot nicer because then I've already got a contract, so I already know what I'm making for the weekend. But then I can only have the 1 or 2 cars to focus on, or however many cars they have, instead of trying to do the 200 cars that happen to be there that weekend.
Right.
And then you can focus on composition and everything.
Yeah. Then I keep it in my head, but I have a shot list that I try and get. So I try and get at least something from the front, something from the back, 3/4 type angles from the side, and then each track has the shot everybody wants. So at Daytona, for example, everybody wants the shot at night in front of the big Ferris wheel where you can see the lights streaking across the frame. Everyone wants that shot. At Laguna Seca, everybody wants the corkscrew. So every track has that shot that's the iconic, you're at Laguna Seca shot. And so then you try and get those things, but then once you get all that stuff taken care of, then you can start letting your creative freedoms come out. I like trying to do that during the practice sessions and the qualifying sessions instead of during the race, because in the race you're trying to catch the moments, the wheel-to-wheel stuff and the crashes and the drama, whereas in practice you don't get that stuff.
No crashes in practice, please.
So what is one of the coolest photos you've taken? Or do you have a couple? Ones that are just...
Every year I always take another one that I like.
That's like, what's your favorite kid? You take...
It's like, what's your favorite car? We'll put some parameters on it.
The next one.
I always taking
what is your favorite kind of shot? How about that?
I've got 2 that I really like. I call it the bullet car effect, where you try and get the front corner of the car in focus and the rest of it's blurred, so the car looks like it's going really, really fast.
Okay.
But I also like taking the really wide, more scenic panoramic type photos at a really long exposure so that the background looks really blurred, but the car is completely tack sharp. So you can see it in its environment. That usually works best in like the late afternoon or early morning, sun's coming up or going down, because you get that really nice light hitting the cars.
It seemed to work under the lights. We've been at a couple of races where we raced at night and the track was fairly well lit. And you could get some of that.
I love doing that at night too. You really do a slow shutter speed to get the lights, like I was saying, like with Daytona, you get the lights streaking across the whole image. Those are always really fun. It's hard to do at our track here because they don't put any lights on at the night races.
Right.
The only light you get is down the front straight from the pits. And so you kind of got to use the other cars' lights to make your light, which is a challenge.
I could see that. That would be that'd be a tricky one.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a good one.
Good question too.
I haven't. This is it.
All good questions.
Right. So when you have camera equipment that you're just pretty much have outgrown and you're done, is there any places that are reputable where you can sell your stuff? If you have a tendency to want to upgrade, or do you kind of hold on to it or give it away? Or
yeah, Here we have one of the local news stations has their own classified listings. That's better than Craigslist. That's a local thing. It's kind of nice. Craigslist is usually pretty good. eBay. A lot of times, though, depending on where you live, there's usually a pretty good Facebook group that's all about selling camera gear, and those seem to be really popular these days because you can people know what they're looking for, and they're usually more of the experts selling them too. But that also means they know what they have, and so their prices are going to reflect that.
Right.
But finding deals is a little harder. But that's what I do when I look for lenses. I check the Facebook classifieds and then the local listings, and sometimes you find things, sometimes you don't.
Right.
So suppose I'm the newbie, and I've got my phone, or I've got an entry level camera, and I'm not really fluent and don't have the ability to do high level camera control. So I'm going to run in auto pretty much. Is there anything I can do to compose the shot to make it look like I actually knew what I was doing, or fake it till you make it?
Yep, that's a great question. Composition is honestly probably the most important part of photography. So at a track, usually you try and stick with the rule of thirds. If you're familiar with the rule of thirds, say you take your rectangular image and you break that into 9 squares. I try and keep the image right. I try and keep the car in the bottom half of the image, the bottom third, and towards one corner or the other is what I try and do, unless I want it filling the entire frame. So there's that. And then also just watch the location you're shooting at. There might be some ugly things in the background that are distracting, like porta potties or light poles or the corner marshal's car or whatever, that kind of stuff. Try and avoid those kinds of things too.
Okay. And then the one thing I've noticed is that the camera shots that I tend to not be at what the natural eye level is. I don't know if it's me or it tends to either be pretty low, or significantly higher. But I guess we were bored with what we normally see. Is that true, or is that just?
Yeah, that's personal taste. I think a lot of it, but generally speaking, cars tend to look sexier from like their shoulder line, so like the window line of the car.
Oh, okay.
So I try and get, when I'm taking stills, like beauty shots of a car instead of at the track, I get low. I try and put myself about in line with where the driver's head would be in the car.
Okay.
Maybe a little lower. I play around with it a little bit, because sometimes the angles look better higher or lower than that. But at the track, a lot of it's just about your environment too. What's the surroundings? Or can you get up on that hill back there to look down on the track? Can you get down low? Yeah. Or can you get down really low at the tire wall level and use that as a foreground element?
Okay. All right. So I can fake a little bit.
Yeah.
I got a chance. Because the only time I ever got I used to play a lot of volleyball, and I used to take a lot of pictures playing volleyball. And the key was really just put that thing on the sport mode, hold the button down, and then see what you got at the end. Unfortunately, by the pedigree of my age, I was using film, so I would go through.
Right.
That was painful. So I missed it. Wish that was there, but anyway. Okay.
Right. So weather in a factor. I mean, you have to shoot in the rain. You have to shoot. How do you manage that? Somebody carry an umbrella above your head, or you have a tulip?
I usually wear a waterproof rain jacket and a hat or something to keep. But the important thing is keeping the camera dry. You can use a trash bag. You can go. Camera stores actually sell rain bags just for cameras. They've got little cutouts for your viewfinder and all that, which is kind of nice.
Like the Charlie Brown Halloween costume?
Kind of, actually, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, you can just use a plastic bag or something as long as you're covering the lens and keeping it dry. Shooting in the rain can be miserable, but the types of shots you can get in those types of situations usually look pretty good. because they're interesting, and you get reflections in the water, and it's just a whole different element.
The mist.
Hmm.
Well, I've also come to understand early on when I was learning photography the first time around was that cloudy days are the best days to get the best color,
Yes.
the truest color of
And partly cloudy days make the most interesting skies too during racing pictures.
Right.
If it's a blue sky, well, yeah, it's fine, but it's uninteresting. Whereas if you've got some cool puffy clouds in the background, it adds another element to it.
Right. But I do know that if it is an overcast day, that it does. I think what do you call it? Not a gray screen,
Golden
but
hour.
like a gray background. It's a neutral.
Like a light box.
Right. It's a neutral shading. So.
Yep. It evens out the light.
Mm-hmm.
Diffuser. That's the word. Diffuser.
Yes. Yes. And I've always looked at rainy days, and I always told my kids stuff like that. It's a rainy day, but it's a great photography day.
Right. Yep. Especially with like fall colors. That's
exactly
fall colors. Here, actually, the last couple of years, we've been getting a lot of wildfires in the summer. So during the racing events, we'll have that haze of smoke, like just enough to make some really interesting orangey kind of light. It's kind of adds a really cool filter to the pictures. It's nasty,
and you probably want to keep that in because it actually sets a timeline. It's like these photos were shot during this event in time.
Right. And you use that light to your advantage, and you want it to keep that orangey glow to it, which makes it look really interesting.
Right. Like that. So good entry-level cameras, entry-level lenses is pretty much kind of stay away from stuff that are unfamiliar, I imagine. And just
I
keep
would.
it a good name brand.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go. Well, there's not really a lot of weird brands out there for cameras. There's the big names. Stick with those, of course. Mm-hmm. But don't get in over your head either. Just try and you don't need, like I was saying earlier, you don't need the latest and greatest, all the buttons and features and stuff, and not use them and overwhelm yourself with all the functions and the settings and the modes, and just there's a lot of things out there. I remember I got my first DSLR. I went from a point and shoot to a DSLR, and even with it being a basic, simple one, it was still overwhelming because it was a whole new thing. You have to relearn. You're not relearning composition, but you're relearning the camera and what you need to do to get the same picture.
Yeah, it's like starting out in a video game. You don't know what the heck's going on. You got to figure it out as you go until everything starts to become a second nature.
Sometimes, yeah. But
know what you're doing.
Practice makes perfect.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that's one thing we were looking at when we go. So I guess we should go ahead and just keep this this Nikon that we have right now. It doesn't. At the time when this Nikon came out, it was a really good camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 5000 series was one of the better middle of the road Nikon cameras. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it might be worth just sticking with that until things kind of grow, and then try to go ahead and sell stuff off as I need it. But having the one good lens, which you said was the 160 to 300, is that what it was?
The one I use is the 150 to 600.
Right, that's what I meant.
It's from the brand Sigma is the brand. It's not a Nikon or Canon brand. It's a Sigma brand. Mm-hmm. But Nikon and Canon also both make their own long lenses too.
Right.
But
and Sigma makes lenses that fit both.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So going into videography now.
Wait.
Okay. Bill has a dumb question. It actually says on this document.
It did. I saw that before you erased it. I did see that.
Yep. I moved them. So Bill's dumb questions. Not that I've been, fake Santa-ing in my background here. There's some, this is great because Vicki actually knows these things and she's horrible at automotive jargon, but there's two things that I've been seeing that I don't really have a good understanding of. And that's some cameras are called mirror and some cameras are called mirrorless. Mm-hmm. don't really know what that means or why I would care.
So mirrorless cameras are the newer types of digital cameras. They're starting to replace a lot of the DSLRs.
Mm-hmm.
So a DSLR has a mirror inside the camera. So if you take the lens off, you can see the mirror in there that it bounces, just like an old film camera, it bounces the light from the lens onto the film.
Sensor.
Yep, in this case, it bounces it down to the sensor.
Mm-hmm.
A mirrorless camera does not have that. It just goes straight to the sensor. So think of your phone. Your phone is a mirrorless camera. There's no mirror in there to get it down to where the sensor is.
Okay.
Whereas most all DSLRs have that mirror in there. The advantage to it is it's less moving parts without the mirror. They're smaller, lighter, which just makes the weight advantage. So if you're out hiking or something, it's easier to haul around. You're at the side of the track, hauling it around, less weight.
Is there any difference in the photo?
Not really. A lot of not that I've known, I don't have a lot of experience with mirrorless cameras, to be completely honest with you. They're still pretty new. I don't know about Nikon, what their versions are, if they have them, but I know the Canon versions, like I was saying earlier, their lenses are specific for the mirrorless cameras. They do come with an adapter that will allow you to use the older lenses, but from what I've been told by other motorsport photographers is they don't really have a good long lens yet for the Canon mirrorless cameras.
Okay. And then there's another camera, or it might just be a type of camera, or it might actually be a different camera construction. But there's this camera that people talk about called a Leica.
Mm-hmm.
Is that significantly different type of camera, or is it just a mirrorless camera, or is it people talk about it?
It's a brand.
It's like a Tesla thing. They either love this thing and there's nothing better, or they hate this thing, as far as I can tell. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a brand. I genuinely don't know a lot about them, but they're a very old brand. They do a lot with rifle scopes and binoculars, and they make really good glass. But I can't say I know anything about their newer cameras. They were very.
Maybe it's not Leica then.
They were very
I'll find out.
Big film. They were a big name in the film industry for sure, though.
All right. So going into videography, you said you dabbled with that also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit.
So what cameras? I mean, I noticed that you guys, for what you guys do. I mean, I know that we use the GoPros.
Oh, we use GoPros too. Yep.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
How many do you normally mount in a car?
So for the lemon stuff, we had, let's see, 1, 2, usually 3 in the car.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have, well, it depended on who was driving and what we needed, but we usually had one on the nose. We'd have one in the car facing the driver, facing the host. So the host has to be on camera. You guys won't need that.
No.
And then we usually would have one back behind the driver so you can see the dash out the windshield.
Right.
That one's tricky to mount because you've got to get the height right so that you're not looking at the mirror or looking at the radio kind of thing.
The biggest issue that I have with the GoPro is battery life.
Yeah. Yep.
That is, well, of course, Jennifer has a problem with turning it off when it should be on and turning it on when it should be off. We have a lot of pictures of her with the hood up, just the hood up.
Oh, man.
That's because you can't, on the GoPro, the one thing that they don't have, you can see it from the back, but if you mount it in the back window and you're the driver, you don't know whether you're turning it on or turning it off.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, when we were doing the Lemons races we did, when we were filming, we had cameras running at all times. If Todd and Paul, our 2 co-hosts, were driving, we'd have the host cams on, and then we'd have the nose and then out the glass. Sometimes we have a 360 camera too that we use once in a while, so we'd put that on there once sometimes just to try and get some different shots. For our purposes, they don't produce the best image. So a GoPro produces a better image than the 360 camera we have. So we only use a couple clips of it here and there typically. But when we do our driver changes, we were changing out cameras. We put in different GoPros and then letting those charge while the next driver went out. And then
You basically had 6 cameras you were rotating around.
yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
Because
Is that why you keep putting GoPros on our list, Bill? Every time I turn around, I got more GoPros on our list.
Oh, you know, I mean, if we can't get it to work with the number we have, we obviously need more of them.
yeah. Well, and then too, I don't know if you guys saw, but our last season we did Spec Racer Ford race school.
Yep.
We destroyed 3 or 4 GoPros filming that. They'd get hit by they'd be mounted on the nose of the car and they'd get hit by debris, just rocks or gravel or tire bits, and they'd hit the lens and crack them.
Oh,
just,
did you? And you actually had video of them crack. Up there goes another one. Up there goes another one.
Yeah. Then it becomes an unusable image, and it's like, well, they're a disposable item for us at this point.
Oh, geez. So I guess but you know, it just seems like the GoPro changes like every 1.5 to 2 years. There's a new GoPro getting better and better, and now I think they're up to like GoPro 9 now, aren't they?
9s, I think. Yeah, we have 8s. The cool thing about the 8s though is they built the frame, the cage is built into the camera now. So instead of having to have that little cage you have to mount the cameras into, you just use it's got built-in.
And that makes everything so much easier.
Yes and no. So
if they're all the same.
Yeah, it makes it easier for just popping it in and out and not carrying. For us, when you need the frame to be identical every time, having the cage was better, so you could pop it out and stick it in. The cage doesn't move. Whereas this time you got to jiggle the camera around and try and get it close. And it's not that big of a pain, but it's still an extra step.
Mm-hmm. So
at least for racing anyway. When we're shooting normal type TV episodes, that's not really an issue because we're not swapping cameras in and out.
Maybe GoPro 10 will solve the issue of the battery life at some point.
Right.
Well, I think that we were talking about the cameras in our car that would, I think a friend of ours has it, that would turn on with the car and turn off with the car. So the battery life was never really an issue at that point because the battery was always
I know there's some other brands. What are they? I can't think. I can picture it, but I can't think of what it's called. There's some other brands of GoPro-like cameras that you can hardwire to the cars and just leave them mounted, and then they run. They actually have a separate spot where you keep the memory cards and things like that. So you're just changing out cards instead of having to change out the cameras, and then they're powered by the car.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So what about editing tools for that?
We use Final Cut Pro. It's an it's an Apple program. I don't know if they have a Windows version of that or not. But Adobe has a really good one as well. That's kind of what everybody uses is the, why can't I think of what it's called now? That's kind of embarrassing.
You use what you use. And
Adobe's got their version. There's other ones too. We use Final Cut Pro.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, I'm going back to dummy questions. So there's this camera, which I thought was a Leica, which I can't find the name, and I don't know. But anyway, so it's a camera where you take the picture, and then it's got you can focus on whatever you want in the depth of field. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a Leica. I'm gonna find it. I'll put it in the notes if I don't find it before we're done. But that was what I was actually aiming at before. So.
All right.
Not familiar with
that. So do we have any audience questions?
Audience questions? We do not this week. We do not this week.
Okay.
Nobody knew we were doing this because we just found out we were doing it yesterday.
It was kind of last minute.
Yeah, which is good. So let me see.
So what would a entry level person expect to spend? Are they talking a couple $100, or are they talking 4 digits?
2,000.
It depends.
Rough numbers.
Again, it depends on just what you're after. If you're buying new versus used, you can definitely and obviously save money by buying used. Same with lenses. Usually, lenses don't wear out quite the same way as a camera does. Cameras usually have a shutter speed life, whereas the lenses don't typically. But yeah, I would suspect a good entry level fee is probably $400 or $500 to get the telephoto lens, to get your camera body and the memory cards and things like that. That'll get you set up to at least take the pictures.
Okay, and then if you want to get
Are you
something,
shopping?
not me, not at all.
That's a yes.
Not me. And then if you wanted to get something that was kind of good for an amateur, not professional, we're talking.
As you're bumping up, you're probably looking $1,500 to get more like a decent camera body and better lenses. If you're looking more at a pro level, you're looking more 5,000 plus, just depending on what you're getting. My stuff's probably, I don't know, I'm probably 8 or 9 with mine.
Okay. And as with most hobbies that we get into, you can spend as much as you want.
Oh yeah, some of
There's
these.
no upper limit.
Yeah, some of the lenses, like if you watch the Olympics and you see the guys with the big gigantic white lenses, those things are 10,000 plus, just the lens. So,
wow,
sky's the limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
we don't plan on that under a
No,
Christmas tree.
I don't either.
No. Not
Okay.
yet.
All right. Well, I hope that helps everybody at home who's trying to figure out exactly what to get for their significant other for Christmas time. But
yeah.
Now, what we've all been waiting for. Vicki.
All right. We are going to do something that we like to do to all of our guests to get to know you better.
Okay.
Fast and furious storytime questions. They're kind of rapid fire. They get to know you better. Some of them are even funny.
Sure.
Okay. So, Bill, why don't you start it off?
Sure, I can do that. So there's this concept that we're stealing from another podcast. They called it a taproot car.
Yeah, I saw this. I'm not familiar with this term.
It's the car that got you into cars. It could be a Hot Wheels car. It could be a model. It could be your next door neighbor's boyfriend's car. It could be your mom's car. It could be, what was the car that got you into cars? What is the car that we can trace this back to and blame for all the money that we spend on these cars?
For me, it was a Mustang. Actually, I can probably go back to. You know what? I'll list 3 different cars. How's that?
Sure.
When I was 2 years old, thereabouts, my aunt had a 64 or 65 Mustang. It was a 6-cylinder. And while my grandpa and my dad would be working on the car for her, I'd be sitting in the driver's seat playing race car driver or whatever. I don't really remember that much. I remember the car, but I don't remember playing in it or anything like that. But growing up, my dad was into four-wheeling. We'd lifted Jeeps. I had one of those Power Wheels. It was red. I'd cruise around in that thing everywhere.
Oh, okay.
That was my freedom when I was 4.
Not the big wheel of the Green Machine, huh?
No.
Okay.
But then I can't tell how old I was. Probably 6 or 7 or so. I remember seeing it was a Fox body Mustang that had everyone calls them the cheese grater taillights. They've got those little fin things on them,
Mm-hmm.
the trim piece. Most people hate them. But I saw those, and in the early 90s, those were cool. And when you're 6 or 7 years old, that was a cool look. So that's kind of what started my Mustang love, was that car.
So let's do Mustang stories. So Vicki's driving my Mustang at the time. It was the first Cobra of the modern series in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. So Vicki's driving down Route 95 in Delaware, doing 95.
It goes up every year.
In third gear. In third gear, I turn to her and I say, we have 3 more gears. And she's like, but I don't need any more. So anyway.
Yeah. No. So, what is the one thing that no one knows about you that would surprise them?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Most people, I don't think, well, people that know me well know, but I used to play, I still do once in a while. I play electric guitar. I was kind of a metalhead. I would play for hours every day throughout high school and just after high school. As I've gotten older, finding time to do so has gotten a lot harder. But my brother that I live with right now, he plays too, and so once in a while we'll get together and still play. But throughout that part of my life, I was the guy that wore the studded belts and the wristbands and all black, and I never did the eyeliner or anything like that, but I was I had the wallet chain, and I was that guy.
All right.
I know. I saw some of the postings you did right after we didn't go to Atlanta, and I was like, oh, we could have had such good music and drove Vicki crazy. But that's okay. So do you have a favorite race driver or current racing driver?
Patrick Long's up there. He's definitely one of my favorites. If you don't know who he is, he's the only American Porsche factory driver. He's pretty killer. Who else?
I was going to say your Porsche roots are showing up.
Lewis Hamilton, of course. He's one of the current best drivers out there. He's amazing. Paul and I from the show, we were actually just watching yesterday his qualifying lap record of Spa from this year, and it's just completely mind-blowing and undramatic and just amazingly fast.
You know what? We forgot to plug one more thing that you guys do. Hopefully, with COVID going away, you guys have a trip where you go to. Well, you can say it. I'm not going to steal the thunder.
Okay. So every year we do this trip with a group of fans where we call it pilgrimage. We fly into Frankfurt, Germany, and we go, depending on how the track days align, we do a track day at the Nürburgring and then another track day at Spa, which is the F1 track in Belgium. They're only a couple hours apart. They're a lot closer than most people would ever think, being 2 different countries. And then we do a road tour day in the middle where we get to drive various different cars from a company called RSR that we get our cars from for the track days. And we get to go kind of drive around the German countryside while we're basically helping them out by driving them from one track to another for them while we get to enjoy the German scenery. So we do that typically every fall. This year, of course, we didn't get to do it, but it's a lot of fun. We're working on getting dates for next year. Knock on wood that it happens. But so far, things are looking pretty good for that.
I figured we didn't have to talk only about Vicki's Christmas.
I'm working. I got ideas. I got stuff.
The great thing about that trip too is while it's really expensive, you pay for your airfare separately, but everything is inclusive. Your hotel, your food, the car, the track time, everything is included in the price that we have set, except for if you want to buy a t-shirt, well, you can go buy whatever t-shirt you'd like separately. But other than airfare, everything's set up so you don't have to worry about anything, which is pretty great.
So, what at this point, if any, is the car that got away?
I don't know that I have any just yet.
No,
you bought the Mustang and won't let go.
Broken.
Yeah, one's sitting in the garage broken. I had a BRZ that was a really fun car, but it was about time to let that one go. When I was married, we had a Boxster that was a great car. Loved it. That's how I ended up getting my 911. It was a lot better than the BRZ, which made me want my own Porsche. And yep, that's where that went. Of the cars I've had, though, the one that I shouldn't have sold was actually a Mazda 6. I had a 2006 Mazda 6 hatchback. So not the wagon, it was the actual hatchback. So it still looked like a sedan, but the back end opened up like a hatch.
Yeah, it's a big clam.
Yep.
Oh,
And
okay.
sold that car to buy a house. And then the car that we kept was a 2009 Jetta, which was newer, less miles, hence keeping it. And once the warranty ran out on that car, it had all kinds of issues. So it was the car.
You wish got away.
Yeah, sold that. Should have sold that one instead of the Mazda. Put it that way.
Could be. So, Chance, up till this point, what's the fastest you've ever driven? Since you've been out on the ring, since you've been out driving in the roads of Germany, this number could be over 50.
On public roads in Europe, on the Autobahn, I did 150 in a Mercedes CLA wagon, shooting brake.
Oh, very nice.
We don't get here.
Nope.
On a racetrack, I did 160. Well, it was 260 kilometers an hour, which I think is about 160, in a Golf R down the long straight of the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
That's the fastest I've driven. I've ridden faster, but I've not driven faster.
Yep, I could see that. Okay, so I don't know if you know this, but anybody who comes on our podcast, they get a chance because we're going to win the lottery. It's going to be a huge lottery. We just have to start playing. And we're going to have an island. And on this island, there's a racetrack. Apparently, some of our prior guests bring a taco truck. So what 5 cars do you want us to have for you on the island, rocked and loaded and ready to go?
Man,
5 cars.
That's fun. Okay. The GT40, the original GT40 from the 60s, that is my all-time favorite car.
Okay.
I would have one of those. Probably a GT3 race car of some sort. It's me, so it's probably a Porsche. Do a 911 GT3 Cup car.
Oh, very nice.
Um,
How about a touring car type Mustang, maybe a 67 that's just bulletproof and running like a champ?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Have one of the old Trans Am cars. I'd do that.
Oh, I was talking about fixing your car for you and just having it sitting there waiting. That'd be a nice surprise.
That too. I'm kind of building mine to be, you said pro touring, which it is, but I'm also building it to be more of one of the old vintage Trans Am cars, the old race cars from the 60s, but with modern tech, so better brakes and better fuel injection, stuff like that.
Right.
That's kind of the intention of that car. And I hope that I'll get it there. That's a pretty good one. 2 more, man.
And we've had Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We've had all kinds of cars. So.
I think a Ferrari 288 GTO.
Oh, okay.
A little bit different than most, but the 288 GTO, that's of the big Ferrari supercars, that's probably my favorite. So what does that leave me? One more?
One more.
Let's do the Volvo 850 Estate touring car from the 90s.
Wow.
How's that for obscure?
That's a new one.
How's that for obscure?
That works for me. That's very nice. Beck.
Okay. All right. If you could only daily drive and race cars from one decade in the past, what decade would you choose?
Oh, man. That would probably either be the 2010s or the 1960s. 2 very different decades, but
I know, but they're very cool decades.
Those cars have nothing in common.
No, they don't. But the 60s was when, Shelby and the GTOs and the GT40s and 911s, right. And then now is just the cars are so much faster and capable and comfortable and you name it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so everybody wants to know this one. This is the big one. Who's the bigger diva, Paul or Todd?
Bigger diva.
Just kidding.
Don't make him answer.
We're not trying to get you on the podcast to lose your job, so don't worry. It's fine.
That's funny, though. That's pretty funny. It's probably me. The secret answer is me.
Secret answer is you. Oh, there's a man who takes
good
this.
answer.
He's learned well. He fall on the sword all by himself. There you go. So if you were going to take the ultimate road trip, since you won't answer the other question, where would it be to and from, and in what car would you want to be in?
I've actually got this planned, and I hope to someday to be able to take this.
Awesome.
Fly into Rome, and spend the day in Rome, do all the Roman, the Colosseum and all that stuff, and then from Rome, drive up towards Maranello and Modena and go see the Ferrari factory, Lamborghini, Pagani, all those guys.
You can go on the track too, so don't feel limited. You can go on.
Go on Fiorano. Let's do that.
That's right.
From there, you go up to the Alps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go up through Milan and then up through the Alps towards Lake Como. And while you're up there, you might as well do the Stelvio Pass, which was on Top Gear. May as well.
Have to do it.
Yep.
Have to.
From Lake Como, cut across, go through the Alps all the way over to the Route Napoleon, which is a road that goes south all the way back down to the coast.
Yep.
And spits you out along the Riviera west of, I don't think it's as far as Marseille, but it's west of Nice. And then drive along the Riviera towards Nice and Monte Carlo, spend a day or so there, maybe during the F1 race.
I mean, if you have to.
And then cruise the Riviera all the way back down to Rome and fly home.
There you go.
Wow.
And as for the car, I think it would have to be two different cars. For a lot of it, pick like some modern, like a McLaren Spider or Ferrari Spider or something. And then, so take that one up through the Alps. And then once you get back down to the coast, something Italian and classic.
Oh. I can tell you, you picked that one off right off the top of your head. That's pretty impressive.
I should show you. I've got the route listed saved on my Google in my email.
Nice.
So I can pull up a link and I'll have to send it to you guys.
That's awesome.
So do you have a favorite car movie or a favorite car from a movie at all?
Favorite car movie? I really like Ford vs Ferrari.
I did too.
That's probably my new favorite movie.
That was a good one.
It was. All right. Jeremy, Hammond, May, Chris, Matt, other.
I think
Vicki won't ask.
I've always liked Top Gear, I'm guessing.
Yep.
A competitive show now.
Yeah, the old trio, of course, was the best. Matt and Chris, I really liked. They got along really well. I think Matt LeBlanc deserves way more credit than he got. But Clarkson, with his presenting style, has probably always been my favorite. Same with
Snarky.
Same with May. I really liked James May's stories.
Sure.
They're all good. How do you pick one?
I know they are. They all have for their own reasons. They're all very good.
Probably my favorite review of theirs, though, was Jeremy Clarkson and the gray Gallardo Spider on the track. It's not a very long review, but just the vocabulary he uses and the energy he has in that review is pretty cool.
Yep.
Very good.
Awesome.
All right. What is your favorite track so far?
Spa, hands down.
Really? Where's that at?
Spa. That's in Belgium.
Belgium.
Oh.
Town of Spa.
It's on
what
this
is
trip.
so nice about it?
The elevation changes. Eau Rouge is one of the most famous series of corners in racing, and it is one of the most tricky. It's this hill is very steep. It's blind at the top, very, very fast. But the flow of the track through the woods is just a really cool place to be. Nürburgring's cool, of course, but Spa is just a killer track.
Nice. Very good.
I think Ross Bentley, who was on just a couple weeks ago, he says that most people who go there, it instantly becomes in their top 3.
Oh, hands down. And if it's
Yeah.
the first track you've ever been on, well, you're kind of screwed the rest of your life.
Yeah, I remember.
All downhill from there.
Exactly. It's the exact same thing. I take Vicki. We went to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and I take Vicki golfing for the first time. And she practices and she tolerates going out golfing with me. And I'm like, okay, before we start, we're going to Kapalua on Maui. I'm like, all golf courses are not going to look like this. Just
Right.
So yeah.
But my favorite American track, though, that I've actually driven on is probably Sonoma, which is north of the Bay Area.
Yep.
Mhm.
A lot of elevation change there as well.
Well, we were trying to get you down the road Atlanta, but you didn't have the chance. But maybe
We'll
do
get
something
there.
again.
We'll get there.
Absolutely. I have not given up.
Mhm.
I will take that as a rain check, not a cancellation. So, what are you guys currently working on now with most of the canceled season ending anyway? And you guys got anything fun coming up for next year?
Actually, we did. We've done really well through this season. We shot an entire season through the pandemic, and had new episodes that aired back in July.
Yep.
This past month, though, has been really crazy. We recently got one more episode left that we're filming next week down in Vegas, which will be the C8 Corvette with a base 718 Cayman.
Oh wow, that should be good.
Yeah, it's not the typical comparison. It's usually 911 and Corvette, but the price points are right. They're both mid-engined. The performance doesn't really compare, but they're the two you'd cross shop. We also recently did the C8 convertible with the Lexus LC500 convertible, which are
What's a different one?
it's very interesting. Yeah, you have to watch that one to see why that we put those two together, but it'll make more sense. We took a road trip through Colorado where we took our cheap sports cars that we have. If you follow our YouTube channel, we've got these. We do this cheap sports car challenge every year where we buy something for less than 10 grand. Last year we did a Volkswagen Phaeton and a Maserati Quattroporte. This year we've got a BMW Z4 and a Mercedes SLK that were both bought for under $7,500, and we're keeping those for a year and doing adventures in them. We took them to the $1 Million Highway in Colorado, which was an amazing road. Couple of weeks ago,
you took them to the Phaeton and the Maserati. You took them to the Salt Lake, right?
Those we took to the Salt Flats. Yep.
Oh, Bonneville. Yeah, sorry.
Yep, Bonneville Salt Flats.
Because why wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. We had going back to that, actually, we had a Jeep Wrangler for our support vehicle that day. It was rented, and the top speed of that Jeep is 105 miles an hour.
Wow. That's not a comfortable ride, I got to tell you.
It wasn't as dramatic as I expected it to be, but it did it.
That's a scary ride in a Jeep.
On the salt flats too, which is not smooth.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not what you believe. Yeah, a couple weeks ago we were in California. We did a Shelby Daytona coupe with a 356 Speedster, which was down along the PCH, which was amazing. That's going to be a really fun episode. But yeah, we've got a lot going on right now.
Cool.
Very nice. So how can our people keep in contact with you, and how can they follow you or your team?
Me personally, I'm Fatty Hales on Instagram, so PHATTY, not F. I've actually got
definitely not F.
I've got three Instagram accounts, actually. That one's my main one. Then I've got one for the Mustang, which is Project Pony Up, and one for the 911, which is Millennium Outlaw, because it's a Millennium Edition car, and I've kind of modified it to the Outlaw. But also my website's chancehalesphotography.com. Then Everyday Driver, of course, everydaydriver.com, and at Everyday Driver everywhere else, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you got it. Yeah.
And you do have some of the best car pictures you'll see on Instagram. So if you just like to be teased on a daily basis with bursts of pictures, and put them on your shopping list like I do. You can follow Chance there and definitely see some of his great photography and great skills behind the lens when you're watching either any of the YouTube channel or the TV show or just on Instagram. So we do appreciate it, Chance. I would like to thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
my
having me,
bank.
guys.
Thank you
I
for
learned
my
a
bank
lot.
account
Thank
going
you.
lower.
See the dollar signs
fine.
flying out the door? Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. So I apologize to all those who have somebody who wants a camera now because we haven't helped in any way whatsoever. But
I'm only here
at
to
least
spend your
it'll be
money.
better
That's all we do. We just spend your money.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
No, it's very, very good information. I learned a lot this episode, and at least there's a good starting point to work off of.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's hope so.
Mhm.
Yep. So thank you, sir. Hopefully we'll spend probably more money, but at least it'll be a little bit wiser now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we were at a driving event a few weeks back, and there was this phrase that came up that, you know, when you get in trouble and you start to lose the car, both feet in.
Okay, I've heard that.
Heard that. Yep. I thought it was pretty clear. However, some of the people that were there, when they heard it, they said, "Okay, if I'm having trouble and I'm starting to lose the car and I'm going to spin and I'm not
Do like
quite
NASCAR.
sure."
Like NASCAR, you nail the gas, get the rear tire spinning, and then
No.
eventually it's going to spin around the way you want it to go, and then you get back going, right? NASCAR,
Nope.
nail it.
They misunderstood and thought that both feet in meant curl your feet up into a ball.
Yeah, you bring your feet in as you assume the fetal position, like that.
Exactly. So I thought, as a public service to anyone else who has this as misunderstanding, perhaps we could go into what are people saying when they mean both feet in, and what does it do for you?
Wait. Are you for real?
Dead
People
set.
thought that?
I can tell you who it is, but I'll do it off camera.
So am I supposed to say what the feet are supposed to be doing?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. If you get in trouble on the racetrack and your car starts to spin out, put your foot in on the clutch and put your foot on the brake, come to a stop.
That's
and then
both feet,
figure out,
right? That's both feet.
I got 1 foot on the foot, 1 foot on the brake. I got 1 foot on the clutch. Like, what else would you be doing? Hold on. I have to get my knees up to my chest because I am assuming the fetal position.
So perhaps it was a misunderstanding of the terminology, but
Yeah, if you're in trouble, bring your car to a stop. If it has a clutch, pop your foot on the clutch so that your car doesn't, like, I don't know, engine rotate backwards. Anyway, you stop the car safely, and if that involves a clutch, and definitely doesn't involve the brake, no matter what you're driving.
yes.
Come to a stop, hopefully off the side of the track. Use whatever pedals are involved. And once you've stopped your vehicle, look around to whatever corner or station that you can see. That person will direct your next actions. But put your foot on the brake. Like, even if you stall the car, if it's a clutch or whatever, definitely the 1 foot that matters is put your foot on the brake. And if the car hopefully as you put the clutch in, and the car is going to, hopefully if it's in a spot where it's going to roll backwards off the track, let it roll backwards off the track. Let it get off the track, get off the racing surface if you can. Like, kind of feel where the car is headed. And if it's in a position to roll off the track safely, kind of off into the grass, let it do that. Because you don't want to be sitting on the racing line with cars coming behind you.
And you know, in case somebody listening hasn't done this before, you will be amazed at how quickly that car comes to stop if you do this.
Yeah. So just that's the idea when you need to just, your car is out of control. You need to grab it, put it back in control, put your foot on the brake, put your foot on the clutch, let it roll to where it's going to settle. Find a corner station that will safely guide you back into competition or driving.
Yep. And if you don't have a clutch, like I don't know why you would not have a clutch if you're driving a race car, but you know, it's a joke, people. Thank you. When you say both feet in and you don't have a clutch, that doesn't mean gas and brake. It just means,
that means put both feet on the brake pedal.
yes, exactly.
Both feet in on the brake pedal.
Yes, not the gas pedal. Stay off the gas pedal. Just in case, because I figured if they had misunderstood it the other way, I didn't want them, hammering the gas pedal and the brake pedal. But
That's right. And also, as an aside, but not really an aside, this is for all of us in 2020. I have rediscovered the fetal position for napping. So don't use it on the track, but I've really been kind of pulling my whole body together for a nice, comforting nap position.
you know why you do that?
Tell me.
Because you don't get enough dominating with Dawson's. You need 2 per episode.
That's right. Let's start ratcheting this up. Let's do it. Let's call an intifada on being slow.
There we go. Very well, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you, Ben.
Yes, sir.
You ready, Vicki?
I am ready.
Okay, so this is going to go something along the lines of I'm going to do an intro for like 2 minutes. I'm going to ask one question or two in the personal
you're going to
section.
ask some more.
And then Vicky's just going to bulldoze everything else. And I'm just going to sit here and say, thanks for coming on.
All righty.
Yes, I literally nicknamed me Bulldozer.
Funny.
I get excited. Okay.
A little bit. She's getting excited when she does. You know that bird toy that like takes drinks out of cups?
Yeah.
Yeah. When she starts doing that to the microphone, we're in trouble. She starts doing this. So it's like, Vicki, we can hear you.
Funny.
All righty. Good to go, Vic, or are you going to play with the cat? She only leaves when it says, are we good to go? And then
yeah.
Of course. Okay.
It's the
I'm good to
ideal
go.
time to leave.
Okay. Are you good now?
I'm good.